Sexual assault is best defined as any unwanted act of a sexual nature that's imposed on another person against his or her will. So this can include anything from kissing and fondling through to vaginal or anal intercourse.
Sexual assault falls into 9 different categories. In defining this crime, we will begin by outlining what these categories are and give a brief description of each. We begin with sexual assault. This is when someone touches you in a sexual way on purpose, directly or indirectly, without your consent. Sexual assault with a weapon, threats to a third party or causing bodily harm. This occurs when someone sexually assaults you and is armed with or uses a weapon or forces you to have sex by threatening to do injury to somebody else or they injure you. Aggravated sexual assault. When somebody sexually assaults you and they cause serious injury to you. Sexual interference. If you are under 16 years old, it is a criminal offense for someone to touch your body for a sexual purpose with a part of their body or any object, directly or indirectly. Invitation to sexual touching. If you are under 16 years old, it is a criminal offense for someone to invite, counsel, or incite you to touch, directly or indirectly, their body, the body of someone else, or your own body, for a sexual purpose with a part of your body or any object. Sexual exploitation. If you are 16 years old or older, but under 18, it is a criminal offense for someone in the position of trust or authority to have sexual contact with you, even if you consent to it. An example of someone in a position of trust or authority would be a minister, coach, employer, and teacher. Sexual exploitation of a person with a disability. If you are mentally or physically challenged at any age, it is a criminal offense if, without your consent, someone invites, counsels, or incites you to touch, directly or indirectly, their body, the body of someone else, or your own body, for a sexual purpose, with a part of your body or any object. If the offender is in a position of trust or authority towards you, or if you are dependent on the offender. Anal intercourse. If you are under 18 and not married to each other, it is a criminal offense to have anal sex, even if both persons consent. You must be over 18 or married and both consenting. It must be done in private and only by 2 people. If there are 3 people involved, then the law says it is not private. Indecent acts. Exposure of genitals to persons under 16 years of age. If you are under 16 years old, it is a criminal offense for someone to expose his or her genital organs to you for a sexual purpose. The term unwanted act indicates that there is a lack of consent. So what is consent? The law has a very clear definition of what this term means. It is stated that consent is an active choice and the voluntary agreement of 2 adults to engage in sexual activity. Someone who is under the influence of medication, drugs, or alcohol is not in the position to give consent. Here now are a few other exceptions in obtaining consent. It is stated that no consent is obtained if the agreement is expressed by the words or conduct of a person other than the victim. The victim is incapable of consenting to the activity. The offender persuades the victim to engage in the activity by abusing a position of trust, power, or authority. The victim expresses, by words or conduct, a lack of agreement to engage in the activity. Or the victim, having consented to engage in sexual activity, expresses by words or conduct a lack of agreement to continue to engage in the activity. In other words, changes their mind and indicates this in some way. Sometimes, unfortunately, a victim of sexual assault will experience injuries resulting from the crime. Experts at the Sexual Assault Domestic Violence Treatment Center explain that these injuries are divided into different categories.
The injuries that we usually see with victims of sexual assault, we divide into either genital or non-genital injuries. And in both of those cases, The injuries fall really within a category of injuries in medicine called blunt superficial trauma, which in lay terms are defined as bruises, abrasions, and lacerations. And in victims of this kind of violence, we see those bruises, abrasions, and lacerations in some fairly characteristic patterns, often related to the perpetrator trying to constrain the victim or the victim trying to fight their way away from themselves away from the perpetrator.
All victims should know that you do not have to be physically hurt for a sexual assault to be a crime. Many sexual assaults happen when one person threatens or scares another into sex.
I think it's important to realize that in many victims who come to us, we don't see any physical injuries. And an absence of injuries does not mean that a sexual assault did not occur. So my message to women and to anyone who's been sexually assaulted is that they can come to us here in this program with a history of sexual assault, whether or not there are injuries. They will be believed and they will be cared for.
More information about the Sexual Assault Domestic Violence Treatment Center will be provided in the Services section of this DVD resource.